We begin here in Tokyo, where the decline in the number of new coronavirus cases is slowing down 1 week before the state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures is scheduled to end. Tokyo officials are maintaining their guard as the cherry blossom viewing season has just begun. Flowers appeared on a benchmark tree at Yasukuni Shrine on Sunday, marking the official start of the cherry blossom season in the capital. The tree bloomed on the same date as last year. However, people can't enjoy parties under cherry trees this spring. In some popular spots, there are signs asking people not to eat or drink. Tokyo Metropolitan Government officials reported 239 new cases on Sunday. The 7-day average of daily case counts through Sunday increased by 9.8% from the previous week. The number of hospitalizations has been falling since the state of emergency was extended a week ago.
The medical situation has somewhat improved, but there could be more new cases than hospital beds. We will do our best and once again ask people to cooperate to contain the virus.
The central government will hold a meeting of its expert panel and decide whether to lift the declaration as scheduled on March 21st. Restrictions against the spread of coronavirus began 1 year ago in Manila, the Philippine capital. However, a recent upsurge in infections is creating many challenges for President Rodrigo Duterte's administration. Coronavirus measures include limiting business activities and ordering children and elderly citizens to stay at home. Despite this, daily coronavirus cases across the country have been increasing since late last month. More than 4,500 infections were reported on each of the past 3 days. World Health Organization experts say infections have been rising as Philippine households are generally large. They also cite what is considered to be inadequate responses by health officials to stop cluster infections. Business restrictions in Manila, the country's economic hub, contributed to a 9.5% drop in gross domestic product in 2020. The economic decline is the worst since comparable data in the Philippines became available in 1946. It was also the steepest contraction among major Southeast Asian economies in 2020. Members of Myanmar's ethnic minority groups living in Japan have held protests against the military coup last month in their country. About 200 people gathered on Sunday in front of the United Nations University in Tokyo. The rally was organized by Kachin people living in Japan. About 30 Rohingya Muslims from Myanmar also took part. Myanmar is a multiracial country comprising more than 130 ethnic groups. Many Rohingya Muslims have fled oppression by Myanmar's military in recent years. Security police have repeatedly opened fire on anti-coup protesters around Myanmar. Local media report that at least 10 people were killed on Saturday alone. That brings the death toll from military violence to over 80, based on the figure announced by the United Nations last Thursday. Protesters in Tokyo called on the international community to support their counterparts in Myanmar. They held up placards asking how many dead bodies does the UN need to take action.
If we fall apart, we won't be able to do anything, so working together will be a great help.
He also said he wants to overcome religious and ethnic differences to restore democracy in Myanmar. A koala at a zoo in western Japan has been recognized as the world's oldest in captivity at the age of 24. The marsupial named Midori was born in Australia. She's been living at the zoo in the city of Minami Awaji in Hyogo Prefecture since 2003. Midori was presented with a certificate of recognition by Guinness World Records on Sunday. Her 24th birthday was last month. Koalas in captivity live for 16 years on average. The previous lifespan record of 23 years was set by a female koala at an Australian wildlife sanctuary. Her zookeeper says Midori has a hearty appetite for eucalyptus leaves despite her advanced age, which is about 110 in human years.
I've been a caretaker for a long time, and I'm deeply impressed. I would like to continue to take care of her as before.
They say she can still climb trees and loves being groomed with a brush. There are now about 4 months to go until the rescheduled Tokyo Olympics. Last year, local governments across Japan had arrangements to host training camps for visiting national teams. But most plans were affected by the pandemic. This left a group of high school students waiting for their efforts to bear fruit.
A full tray of red, ripe tomatoes. It's a present from a group of Japanese high school students for some South Sudanese athletes who have been training in the city of Maebashi. The tomatoes were grown by the students themselves. They are studying agriculture in neighboring Nagano Prefecture. This project was the plan of Matsuura Akari.
The athletes have been training hard for a long time now, far away from their families back home. We hope we can bring a smile to their faces by sharing our tomatoes with them.
4 years ago, the school came up with the idea of giving tomatoes grown by the students to athletes visiting their hometown ahead of the Olympics. They cultivated the tomato plants in conditions as close as possible to a natural environment, even using bees to pollinate them. Sadly for them, the Tokyo Games were postponed, dashing the students' hopes of meeting foreign athletes visiting their hometown. Then Matsuura heard about the team from South Sudan. They've been in Japan since 2019 because it's hard for them to train in their homeland where there is an ongoing civil war. At last, Matsuura was able to achieve her dream of presenting her tomatoes to athletes from abroad.
Very nice.
The South Sudanese shared their feelings about being able to take part in this summer's games. They said their aim in competing is to bring hope to their homeland and encourage the people there to work for peace.
Our target for Olympics is to get good result for our country and for ourselves.
Cheering on the athletes, regardless of their nationality, gives us the opportunity to think about each other's countries. I feel this may help to change perspectives a bit toward the Olympics.
For Matsuura, this project took a long time to grow, but finally she and her schoolmates have found greater significance than they'd anticipated in the fruits of their labor.
Those were the stories for this hour.
There are reports that 14 protesters have been killed in Myanmar as the authorities continue their attacks on people demonstrating against the military coup. A police officer is also reported to have died as protests continued for a 6th week. Coronavirus patients in intensive care units in Paris are being evacuated to other regions as hospitals in the French capital are overwhelmed by new cases. Cases have been increasing steadily over the past few weeks. The police in London have been facing strong criticism following their decision to break up an unauthorised vigil for a woman who was found dead. A British-Iranian woman, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, who has just completed a 5-year prison sentence in Tehran, has appeared in court to face new charges. She's accused of creating propaganda against Iran.